Um, Kent, I
Yeah.
got to ask you before we get into anything else. George McGinnis, what a nice man. They just announced he passed away.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts immediately when I saw the thing, and I was in the middle of the radio show when it popped up, is that the teammates held a vigil at his bedside once he went into cardiac arrest last week, and they took him to the hospital. And I thought what a tight group of guys that was. The Pacers back in the 70s, those ABA Pacers, they loved each other. And I think I so hope that the guys who play for Indiana now or play for the Pacers now feel the way about each other the way those guys felt about one another.
That's a great way to put it. That's rare. I said on my my show, people may not understand this because people point to Larry Bird, but that's the best high school basketball player. If you were going to say, okay, rank the high school basketball players in the state of Indiana, I think George McGinnis, maybe Oscar, would be 1 and 1A. I think McGinnis probably would be number one if you just took the high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, great pro, Hall of Famer, all that. But that's where I start with McGinnis and then move it from there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And what he did in the Indiana Kentucky All-Star series,
Oh,
and that what do you have, like 53 and 30 or some kind of
yeah.
crazy thing? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and that was meaningful then.
Yeah.
That was a different time. And then, he didn't disappoint as a pro either. He didn't disappoint at Indiana. He just went into Indiana Basketball Hall or the Indiana University Hall of Fame and the NBA Basketball Hall of Fame. I remember his free agency, driving to Florida, reading Sports Illustrated, and he's on a cover, and they were talking about, is he going to join the Sixers? Where's he going? And then he joins the super team, wins a championship with Dr. J and World B. Free and Doug Collins and Daryl Dawkins and Steve Mix and all those guys. And I don't know, Kent, I met him freshman year. Pacers are playing or practicing in Assembly Hall. I have two stories on it. One, they like, hey, everybody's got to we got our uniforms. Everybody's got to get on the court. We're doing a commercial with the Pacers. And I'm like, wow, I never really met a professional basketball player before. And we go out there, and I happen to be standing next to George. I go, hi, Mr. McGinnis. And he goes, Dan, how you doing? I'm like, whoa, really?
No kidding.
Yeah. Like, whoa, all right. And we did something like we stood there and said, go Pacers. I don't know what we did in the commercial, but he was so cool. And then a couple days later, they were practicing, and I think I was done with class for the day, so I went and watched. And I came down the stairway into the little foyer right next to our locker room, and he's in full uniform burning a heater. I go, hey, Mr. McGinnis. He goes, Dan, how are you? I go, I'm good. How's practice? I'm tired. And then, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And every time he came on the show, he was just a good dude, man. He's just a good dude. That's all.
No attitude from those guys. If George McGinnis had scored 64 against the Pacers, I don't think he'd have run into the Pacers locker room looking for a game ball.
Kent,
I'm just saying.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And give Rick Carlisle credit. He basically said, hey, look, just a misunderstanding. Carlisle handles everything really well, by the way.
Yeah.
And they wanted to give Sheepway a game ball, and Giannis looked like a stone idiot. Yeah, I mean, stone idiot. Didn't you think? Like, okay, you scored 64. I get it. But shut up. I don't know.
And then complaining, saying, I got a ball, but I don't think it's the ball because I played 35 minutes in the game, and I know the feel of that ball, and this doesn't feel like that. What is the matter with him? Who gives a damn? You scored 64 points. Enjoy the moment. You got to run in. You got to create drama all over the place. Unnecessary drama. Number one, I appreciate it because now I'm looking forward to New Year's Day at Cambridge Fieldhouse when the Bucks come back. Right? I want to see that. So I'm all about it. I love conflict and the drama that comes from conflict. But as a human being, I actually feel sorry for Giannis because who gives a shit? Are you out of your mind?
Kent, he was angry, angry.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't fake angry. This was, I'm pissed angry. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, really? This got you worked? I mean, you're making millions of dollars. You scored, and we're all supposed to like side with you. I thought, again, I always say this: the worst thing about the NBA starting is you got to listen to the idiots of the NBA.
Yeah.
You got to listen to them. And speaking of listening to them, I said yesterday, you got to suspend Draymond Green. This is before the suspension came down. You got to suspend Draymond Green for the season. He's out of control, Kent, and he's a coward the way he does it. He's a complete coward.
I think you're exactly right. I've been kind of amused by Draymond Green in the past, but
Yeah.
getting ejected 3 times in 21 games, I can't. How? I mean, if you went to work and you had to sit out 1/7 of your days of work because you were seen as being unfit to work, that would be problematic and something that really, as a human being, he's got to address. Not as a player, not as an employee of the NBA or the Warriors, but as a human being, he's got to learn some impulse control and figure this thing out, or this is not going to end well.
I've thought this. I understand Steve Kerr's won a lot, and people like Steve Kerr. But one of your roles as a coach is to establish certain boundaries. It's to
Yeah,
establish culture, and they've never done that with Green. They've made excuses for Green. They've really never said, "All right," and maybe you're tied because of the NBA rules. I don't know, but they've never really said from their perspective, enough, enough. We've had enough, and they've always enabled, they've always coddled, and I think it's embarrassing. Now, nobody's going to think this way. I get it, but I think it's embarrassing relative to the NBA that a team, and this is his sixth suspension, third in the calendar year. A team doesn't have a control over this. A team doesn't have a handle on this. And finally, the NBA had to. I'm no psychologist, but he was out of control. And I would, as the NFLPA, I'd be pissed as an NFL player. How much are you going to defend this guy? Because he's hurting other people.
yeah,
He he's injuring other guys, and that's
right.
bullshit. If you want to know the truth,
I hope for the guy that he finds some sanity and finds the ability to get that impulse control that we all had to learn. You had to learn it. I had to learn it.
sure,
Everybody's got to learn it. You can't just do whatever you want at your workplace whenever you want, or you got real problems and he's got problems.
he does. He does, and I'm not smart enough, like psychology wise, to understand all the issues of that. But I think this. I do think this. I think he's figured out he can make money, particularly after being the next Barkley, and he's got a platform right now, and people pay attention. And he also probably looks down the road. I mean, Bob Knight made a lot of money off throwing a chair. Yeah, it was bad, but he understood how to parlay it, and
Yeah.
people goes away, and then it becomes almost what's the right word? It becomes almost a caricature, and then you live with it. I think that's part of his deal. I think he says, I'm going to be the next Barkley. I'm going to do all this stuff, and away we go. And I think it's crap. I think he's a fool. I think he's a dumbass. I think that I'm glad the NBA stepped in, period. I do. I'm glad
So, so you think that this is a branding effort by
they.
Draymond Green to kind of catch that wave and wind up in media once he's done playing?
I think he's already in media, and I think this is where he is. Rodman was suspended like 15 times. He's got a long way to go. But I'll tell you something else about this. And this is where I go back to the Golden State Warriors. He's set records, or he's been suspended for too many technicals, but he acts like a damn crazy man in those technicals. I mean, it isn't
Yeah.
always hitting somebody, and to the hitting somebody and somebody that wants to defend it. No, no, no. I played in the post enough to know right now at 61 years old how close a guy is, how far a guy is, and if I could hit him. Period. I mean, I know. And you telling me he doesn't? He knew exactly what he was doing, Kent. He knew exactly. And then
Oh
he's
yeah.
about it because then he always acts like he's going to help the guy. He's just a cowardice chicken shit guy that I've had enough of, and he gives me gas. That's it.
Let me ask you this. So, same night, I think Jokic calls an official an MF.
Yeah.
Says make the call MF to the official, and then gets run out of the game. And he's surprised because sometimes it's not even a technical. Can you imagine a workplace where you can call somebody in authority an MF and expect to get away with it? That's insane.
And the key word there is expect.
Yeah, right.
Expected to get away with it. It was a shocker that he did not get away with that. It was like, what? I'm being persecuted here.
what? What? So that was wrong?
Nah,
Because if I had known that that was wrong,
so was that wrong? Wrong?
if I had known, if there was some kind of policy, if it was in the manual that I'm not supposed to have sex with the cleaning woman on the desk, you know.
Man, the NBA. But I'm gonna go back to your point. I think your point is really good. Was it? They're playing Christmas Day. Is that when the Pacers and the Bucks go?
New Year's Day.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I were the Pacers, I would play this real, like always. I want angst. Now, don't hire our test. We don't need total crazy. All right. We don't need, but we need angst. We
Yeah.
do. We need,
Yeah.
we need, I guess better way to say it is we need a rival. We need a rival.
Right.
Becomes a rival. I
And
think.
there is none.
No,
We used to have the Knicks, but nobody on the Pacers now, nor the Knicks now, was even alive
right,
the last time they got after it in a real way with
right.
Smits and Ewing and you know. Hey, and you make a great point about Rick Carlisle because Rick Carlisle did handle this great in public as though somehow the Pacers were victimized, and
Yeah.
his guy, his general manager, took an elbow in the ribs and they're bruised, and we don't know what else at this point. But you know that Carlisle, like he was not giving up that ball. He kept that ball. He had the ball on purpose because 64 is beyond the pale. The game was over and he's still going out and getting buckets. And so screw this guy. We're taking a game ball and he's being petty about it, but he doesn't come off as petty. He comes
No,
off as the adult in the room.
no, and I thought this might work for Mike. No, he did come off as an adult in the room. He handled it perfectly. Anybody that doesn't think he did isn't paying attention, or you're just a fan of the Bucks. And you know what? He always comes off calm. He always comes off control. And I
Yeah.
got to tell you, I'm watching. What's that? Giannis losing his freaking mind, running across the court, and I'm like, "You're an idiot! Like, what are you doing?"
All to get a little trophy for your mom.
And look,
What's the matter
I
with
don't,
you?
and again, Kent, communication is the key, Kent. We must communicate
Yeah.
better. We must have communication, Kent. Man, how about we don't have idiots? And I keep saying it with like an eighth grade education, and we pay it. They just, yeah, the NBA is driving me nuts. I got Gilbert Arenas, who apparently has a forum to talk. He's talking about good for Draymond taking out the Europeans one at a time, and he was serious.
Did he really?
Yeah, yeah, he was serious, Kent. He's like, you do you, man. Take him out one time. What if Jokic, Euro, or whatever they want to call Jokic, let's just say a Euro, he says, well, we got to take out the African Americans one at a time. What if we did
Yeah.
that? Right? I mean, it's insane.
He's way more concerned with the color of the jersey than the color of the skin or the nationality of the guy. That's and in that way he's similar to Rodman. Rodman wasn't a branding guy. Rodman was just crazy. And Draymond, I hope this is contrived and I hope it's branding because you don't need another guy going through a latter part of adulthood like Rodman has.
Man, I the first thing I thought of when I saw that was you got to suspend him. I thought for the season, maybe it'll end up. I don't know. Who knows what'll end up happening? But you can't let that go on. Well, again, if I were the Players Association, I'd be like,
Yeah.
silver. They did it. Good for them. And you know what? It was the lock of the century last night, and I didn't bet it. I think it was a 6-point spread, the Pacers game. I don't even know what it ended up, but you just
14.
knew. Yeah, you knew the Bucks were going to come out and just pound. You just knew based on that thing that happened in Vegas, didn't you? You just
Yep.
kind of knew. Yeah.
I told people on Breakfast with Kent yesterday, I was like, look, this is a gift. -6.5. This is the lock of the year. Bet this, and hopefully people made some money.
Yeah. All right, IU basketball, big one. We got two big ones in our state. All right, Ken, when I went in front of the Golden Committee of Harry Gonzo and whatever, and you know, I'm sitting, I go, look, there's a certain way you bring Indiana basketball back. And I talked about AAU coaches, which Purdue was. Blah, blah, blah. There's a ton of things I said. And I said, the other thing, one of the things, so people lose their mind, like that's the only thing. One of the things was at Christmas time, you need to dominate Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a major city. It's our major city. Bob Knight understood that. That's why we had the Hoosier Classic up there. He called it the Indiana Classic in Bloomington because it was at Indiana. He called it the Hoosier because he wanted Hoosiers, the name out there, people to remember. And Indiana's not dominating. Indiana played Harvard. Indiana got out of the Big Four, which maybe they had to. I don't understand all the politics, but you know who is with the biggest game of the year? Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue is playing in Cambridge against Arizona, 1-2. Now it's on Peacock, which is absurd to me. But they're not dominating Indianapolis. And I'm not saying it shows up today, but if people ask me why since 2002 Indiana hasn't been relevant, there are a lot of reasons. And one of them is not dominating the state that you are named after and the city at Christmas and letting people that haven't gotten the money, don't have the money to see Indiana down in Assembly Hall, buy season tickets, can't drive there on a whim because they got to work, see you in Indy, and it's stupid. And Purdue gets the benefit of that with a great game.
Yeah, I don't understand. Indiana, it's kind and this, I think this goes up the chain all the way at the university, is
Yes.
that Indiana is an afterthought, and what they want to be is a national brand, and that's not the way Indiana basketball works, and it's not the way Indiana football should work either. You've got to be able to recruit Indiana at a high level so that when you've got, it doesn't work every year, and you know this better than me. Some years Indiana high school basketball isn't very good. But other years, you got guys like Mike Conley and Greg Oden and Josh McRoberts and Jawan Johnson and Robbie Hummel and Eric Gordon and on and on and on. And Indiana wound up getting Eric Gordon. But you've got to make sure not every year you don't build a wall around the state and recruit like that. You don't go out and get Bonzi Wells because Bonzi Wells is the best player in the state of Indiana. But when you've got real Indiana guys and you go after them, they're excited that you're in their gym. You're excited that they're talking to you. And you feel like, hey, I got to go down there. And Indiana is not that program at this point.
See, that's exactly right. And my point with this was you got to make Indiana kids dream of playing in Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't just happen because they wake up, and say, hey, look, I want to play at Indiana. Like, I mean, before 81, when I'm going way back, but everybody wanted to play at Indiana because of 1975 and 1976. If you go to Indiana, you saw what they were able to do. Then 81, then 87. Well, it's a different world. Never
Yep.
has Indiana gone this long without a national championship. Never. And the fact of the matter is, you got to make kids like a Braden Smith. You got to be smart enough to understand how good they are, but you got to make kids dream that you don't even hardly have to recruit. Maybe NIL has changed that a bit, but you got to. And so, how do you do that? Expose yourself. Well, you expose yourself to it by being in Indianapolis. And I'm not saying you're in every city, but that's a big deal. Purdue's going to get a hell of a bump because that's going to be an incredible game. Now, why it's on Peacock, that's a whole different matter. A lot of people ask me to address it. It's part of the NBC deal with the Big Ten. It's like ESPN when they put Duke Carolina in the early 90s on ESPN2 to draw people to ESPN2. But that's a hell of a game. That's a hell of a game to be played in the state of Indiana without Indiana participating, and that's bad business.
And I
My
think that the
opinion.
Peacock thing's bad business. I think you've got to expose your
I do.
product to as many people as possible and not go for the short-term windfall by getting more subscribers to Peacock. I think it's really a bad media deal for the Big Ten. And you see it with the Pacers. Not to go back to the Pacers, but with Bally Sports Indiana, if you stream, you got to pay $20 a month to go watch that product instead of having it available for everybody. And so the owner of the Suns, the owner of the Jazz, they get this. They shit canned their deal with the over the top network, and they put their product back on terrestrial TV so everybody can see it and everybody can get excited about it. You've got to see it as a branding opportunity, not a quick kind of, cash out type deal. And that's where the Big Ten has gone. Anything in a meeting, and you've been in these meetings, I've been in these meetings, where you talk about money and everybody's eyes light up. It's, whoa, we get, an extra 10% kick in revenue. Oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Why? Why do NBA teams need more money over the transom in media deals at the expense of their branding? And why does the Big Ten need Peacock over the top money in order to? They're sacrificing branding for cash, and that's always wrong.
No, I agree. No, I mean, look, I expected it to be flexed. I don't know if you could do that, but I expected an announcement to come out and say, no, this game's going to be on NBC, but apparently it's not. And there's a whole deal with Peacock. But, Indiana is playing a huge game. Indiana's got Kansas coming
Yeah.
in. It's a fantastic game. I told you Monday I expected Indiana to win. You have poo-pooed me. Have you less me?
I did. I poo-pooed you because I got to see it to believe it, right? It's kind of like the Colts Steelers game. We haven't seen the Steelers lose to the Colts since '08. So it's hard for me to envision how the Colts are going to beat the Steelers. Kansas, all I remember, when was the last time Indiana beat Kansas? I keep going back to that game. It was like an NCAA tournament game, and we were down 33-3 before
Oh, yeah.
anything. Like it was, no, I see that in my sleep. And so even though this game's at Assembly Hall, I just, and you give the lack of connectivity of this team and their fundamental lack of awareness. I just don't know how you beat a good basketball team no matter where you play.
That game you're talking about was 1991. I think it was in Charlotte, Kent. We're getting ready to play. We go out for warm-ups, and Knight tells Cheney and those kids were sophomores, I think. He tells the team, all right, get in the shower. What? Get in the shower. Get in the shower. Never saw Knight do that before. Dr. Bamba looks at me. He goes, this is the dumbest thing Knight's ever done. When you have a hard on, he exact quote Dr. Bamba said, when you have a hard on, do you get in the shower? I go, nope. No. And we got a kid named Terry Brown who shot it like the truth is, you asked me
Yeah.
how. It just doesn't shoot it well enough. That's one thing. And you got to make shots in Assembly Hall. I think Hunter Dickinson is good enough to get you fired. Really good, but good enough to get you fired in a game like this. And I think Assembly Hall, I think you're going to see somebody from Indiana. I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it's that Mbako. I don't know. Somebody's going to lose their damn mind in the second half. I just don't think Kansas is that. I've watched them twice, and I just don't think they're that good because they can't shoot. Now, the little point guard, DeJuan Harris, he can make things happen. You got to keep him in front. I just don't think they can shoot. And I think you got to make shots to beat Indiana at Assembly Hall on a Saturday afternoon in a top 5 game. That's what I
But
think.
Indiana's got to be able to shoot too, and they've shot it
Somebody
like
will.
hell.
Somebody will.
Like,
It's the
knock wood.
match. and then there'll be 2 late calls, and Purdue fans will call it the Hall of Calls. I'll probably do that too, just to egg everybody on. And Self will be like, "Hey, man, it's a tough place to play."
Are they bringing Ed Hightower out of retirement to call this game? Is that what they're going to do down in Bloomington?
I need London Bradley. That man made us Coach Nitro and share. But I tell you what is going to be interesting though, because that kid
Yeah.
that Ware guy, he didn't show up at all against the other night
Auburn?
against Auburn. Yeah, he didn't show up. He didn't even, he was back to being the bench guy at Oregon, and now he's going to play against kind of a crazy, willing, big, strong guy that he can frustrate because Hunter Dickinson is all about Hunter Dickinson, but he got to show.
Yeah.
These are the games you got to show. I mean, like I said about Gabe Cupps after the first game, it's great. He played well against FGC, whatever. But if you're real, you got to play in these games. You just do. So, no.
And if you're Khalil Ware, you got to figure out how to get to the basket against a team as athletic and big as Auburn, and he couldn't do it. And Renew couldn't either. They had a guy, and good for Bruce Pearl, putting the big down low who could block shots. He made life a little bit difficult down there. Playing in the SEC is no joke, and I don't think playing in the Big 12 is either. But I agree with you about Dickinson. Although I am glad he's out of Michigan. I'm glad he's out of the conference, and now he's a Big 12's problem. But
Ken, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you saw this last night. 335th in the country went into Northwestern. Unbelievable.
Did they really?
Chicago State. Yes, they went into Northwestern last night. The Big Ten is awful. The Big Ten stinks. And Indiana, sitting here 2-0 with a road win in the Big Ten, is good business. Really good business. I'm telling you, Penn State's lost to Bucknell. I mean, the league just is absolute awful. And you know what? If Indiana, this is why Indiana needs to get this win, or else they have no wins that matter when it comes to NCAA. And they're not going to get, 12 to 15 opportunities to get wins in the conference that matter. They're just not. That Michigan win don't matter. Not yet. Maybe it will.
And that's why those non-conference games are really, really important for the other schools to enhance their rankings, either Ken Palm or whatever. They've got to find a way to move up before the Big Ten starts shooting and killing its own.
I'm telling you, Ken, it is. I was looking at this today, man. It was bad. Wisconsin loses by 20 this weekend. By 20. Indiana loses by as many, 30. And Michigan State are combined 9 and 10 between the two of them. You're losing bye games where the team buys another team to come in. I mean, you can't live on reputation. You got to live on year to year. You got to have success. And let's be totally honest. There's no reason for Big Ten basketball not to be the best league in the country. There's no reason. You got the best basketball coaches in these states and high schools. AAU programs are legit. You got more money. You got more interest. You got alumni. You got all this. And look, here it is. Purdue's elite. I just saw this. Purdue's elite. Illinois is good. There's 4 ranked teams. Wisconsin blasted by 30 on Saturday. Northwestern lost to 335th Ken Palm. Michigan State's under 500 to start the season. Ohio State lost to Penn State. Penn State had lost to Bucknell. Michigan, we talked about the 9 and 10, lost to Long Beach State. Iowa's been blown out in 3 consecutive games. Minnesota got blasted by San Francisco. And Maryland, who was a fringe team, is 6-4 and looks terrible. Maybe Nebraska is going to carry the load. Maybe Nebraska. Maybe that Asian kid has got it figured out.
That guy drives me crazy.
I love him. I love him.
I watched him the other day on the Big Ten Network, in those replays of BTN 60 or whatever. I was
Yeah.
like, man, I can't stand that kid. I can't stand anybody wearing. I'm like Draymond Green in that I can't stand anybody wearing a different colored jersey. I can't have it. Especially the guys you would normally admire. The guys, who, if they were playing on your team, you love
Yeah.
them. I
Yeah.
can't take those guys.
No, I know. All right, Purdue, Arizona. I saw Arizona play Duke, Arizona. Here's another game for Purdue that they're playing a tough team.
Yeah.
Tough, like physical, tough team, Kent. This is going to be a tough game. I mean, I keep using the word tough, but that's the only way I can describe it.
I've seen them play once, and they looked really, really good. They look like they're well coached, and they're a different kind of Pac-12 team to me. Pac-12 is always a little bit soft, and this is not that. I think they did a great job hiring the guy that they hired to replace Sean. That guy can flat coach, and he can recruit too.
Yeah, Tommy Lloyd's a great dude, too.
Yeah,
He's a great dude. He understands the West Coast. He understands that recruiting at that level. And people can think Gonzaga is just this little school. And Gonzaga has and was a forerunner in flying private, forerunner in having chefs in their locker room, money into the program to recruit internationally. It's natural. You don't hear of Gonzaga any other time until, other than basketball. And you think it's a small Christian school that just has this niche. No, no, no. They built their niche,
yeah.
but they added to their program at a level that, I always go back to this with Mark Few. Mark and I were having a beer at the Final Four in like '08 or '07, whenever the Final Four was here. It was '07, I think. And I go, hey, man, you ever think you'd turn down $1.5 million a year, which was low then, or low now, to coach at Indiana? And we're sitting in the Hyatt at a bar upstairs, and we're kind of looking down. He goes, see all you people down there? Y'all are crazy. He goes, all Indiana people are crazy. I don't need the hassle. I don't need the
Yeah.
email. I don't need the call-in shows. He goes, practice is over, Gonzaga. He goes, I go fishing. He goes, but the real deal is I have everything I need to be, and he just beaten, I think, Samson maybe in the NCAA tournament. I have everything that I need to beat Indiana, which is more amazing than turning down $1.5 million. So, that's college basketball, Indiana and others, I guess, need to step up. I don't know. But I think Indiana wins, Kent.
I think Tommy Lloyd, the really smart thing, the thing where he separated himself from everybody else, is waiting for the right job. You know what I mean? He could have gone to a bunch of places before that, didn't. He might have failed at all of those. He might not have had what he needed, but he was going to get what he needed at Arizona. He has what he needed, so they're a top 5 program.
TV rights to Ohio State basketball and football told me before Tressel, he goes, every coach at Ohio State is going to win 75% of their games. And then Tressel took it to another level. Urban took it, and now it's at another level. But every coach at Arizona after Lute Olson is going to win big.
Yeah.
You're swimming upstream at Bowling Green, with the Arizona job. You are looking down at everybody else. And look, for Purdue to be successful, one of the interesting things for me, Ken, in this, Braden Smith was great. Braden Smith wasn't good. He was great the other night. He had 30 in the game at Toronto, and they survived 19 threes. Now, that's a first. Now, it's the first time that Braden Smith scoring.
Yeah.
A lot of pub nationally, Braden Smith has from scoring. First time scoring, and 30 is a lot. And we'll see. I guess. I don't know.
Well, and it's kind of like the Colts with Alec Pierce. How is Alec Pierce going to come back in Cincinnati after playing really, really well with the Titans, especially given the fact that the Bengals now had tape and they had a realization that Pierce was kind of a guy that the Colts were going to look to throw deep too. They hadn't done that all season long. All of a sudden, they showed that they did. And the Bengals' first thing they did, job one, was take away Alec Pierce and the deep ball, and that's what they did. Now people know how, he can score, and Smith can score, and what he likes to do with the basketball, so they're going to be able to adjust to it.
I want to go to the Colts. I always think the Steelers out-tough the Colts, and I don't know how to quantify that, but I always think that, Kent.
I think that's half the battle, right? If you want to be, if you're going to beat people because of toughness, you're going to be perceived as tough. And right. I think the perception it follows the reality, but then over time it creates the reality. So when, like, I was in the locker room the other day talking to guys, they're like, "Oh, I'll tell you this about the Steelers, they're tough. Like, they walk into the stadium, they're tough. They're going to hit you and then hit you to the end of the whistle." And so that's what the Colts are. They're going to have to fight the reality, but they're going to have to fight their own perception too, because if you don't, you're going to validate it by thinking, well, they're just tougher than we are again. And that's no good.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really in the Colts' favor, you mentioned this a while ago, and it got broken, but the Colts were one of the only teams to score 20, every game. I'm not sure the Steelers can get to. They can blame that offensive team. That's a bad Iowa offensive freaking team, Kent. That's as simple as I can make it. That is a bad crew.
Didn't get better once they fired Matt Canada. Like, they fired Canada, and they're the same team, and now they're not riding Pickett anymore. They're riding Trubisky, and the thing that you've got to do immediately, and like play one, is find a way to get pressure on Trubisky, or you're going to eat it from him all night long, and you don't have to. If you make him feel uncomfortable, if you make him feel you, he's gonna start to think in his own head, okay, here we go again. And he's going to get that deer in the headlights look, and then you've got him beat. But if you let him get comfortable, as you figure out whether you can get to him with 4 or not, you open up a whole different can of worms, and you could have problems on Saturday.
I agree. No, I agree. I don't view this particular Steelers team in the same vein, other than they have the same uniforms in the same conference, same coach, as I did other Steelers team. I just view it as a team like the Colts that's struggling with a backup quarterback. Are we? Wait, apparently I'm frozen all over the place. Kent can hear Dan, but Dan is frozen on my end. Oh, that's sad, because I can hear you.
Yeah, that's not a technological problem on our end. That's a technological problem on your end, not yours.
My end?
No, not yours. The viewers. No, but as long as the 53 guys over on West 56th Street don't believe it, then we're okay. If it's limited to us, that's just fine.
We can. I mean, we're not playing. Fat ass going to be. No. I mean, I'll tell you that. Otter Creek says the whole stream has been kind of wonky. Let me hang up and come back.
You want to? You know what? How about we do this? Because I can change the channel. How about I change the channel, re-invite, and off we go on Two Big Brains.
What do you need me to do?
Nothing. All you got to do is click on the link. We'll be back on the Two Big Brains channel in just seconds. How about that?
All right.
Okay.